is Ashok from Literati. We are today celebrating Sridhar's birthday. Sridhar is a famous investment banker, a private equity professional, uh, smash hit author of a great novel called End of Samba Dance. End of Samba Dance. Now, we are going to have a conversation with him on multiple facets of Sridhar and how he became an author. So we are publishing this under the name called Making of the Author. So an author is not only a person who writes, but a complete personality. Sridhar, so we'll go back to the first question, which is what is your non-author profile which led you to become an author?
Good morning, Ashok, and it is nice to see you, and thank you for having me on this channel. It's maybe an exaggerated profile that you are saying about me. I'm just a simple, humble fellow who grew up in a place called Korukupete in Chennai, which is used to be a notorious place. I come from a humble family. My father was working in a factory in Tiruvatiyur. And my 18 years of my childhood schooling all happened between Korukupet and Tandiyarpet. And that's how people used to always tell, how can you play goalie and flying kites and playing on the streets, coming from a background of a Brahmin middle class background. But that's how I grew up, and that helped me to understand ground realities of such life. Not everybody would be able to have that type of an experience. So it shaped me well. I studied from a very, very old school in Chennai called Hindu Theological Higher Secondary School. It started in 1888, and that helped me to get some grounding better. I used to have a class every week called theology class. I mean, today nobody talks about theology and all of that. Those are the things, I think foundations were laid well. And then I did my schooling there, and after my 10th, as usual, my parents said you have to learn vocational courses like typewriting and shorthand, and they put me in an institute. Go there, AS, DF, GF, this side, that side, you have to type this, and passed out, and shorthand lower and typewriting higher and all that in the during higher secondary period. My family background was such that I had to get into some work. So I started working with a property developer in Chennai near Gemini compound, and he said that 10 rupees a day is my salary for writing accounts and typing and sending maintenance bills to those owners and all that. And that was my first job. Immediately next day after my exam, I started with this job, morning 9 o'clock until 5:30. Then I decided I have to continue this job because of my need at my home. I joined the evening college at Vivekananda in Mylapore, one of the very famous college. Again, that shaped me to a large extent. I've had great professors who taught me basic foundation things. Those 3 years was very, very important. I was trained by my uncle, who was an army major. He was also my boss in that property development company. He taught me how to write English, how to speak, how to get up properly, how to do exercise. Those are the discipline he taught me, which even at my age at 56, it's helping me. And he is my first mentor in my entire life. I owe it to him. After my graduation, I never thought I will do CA and all that. 300 rupees per month to 600 rupees was the ambition of such middle class families after graduation. Not that I passed out in high grades, but not bad. Then he motivated me, why don't you do chartered accountancy? My father immediately said, I don't have any wealth. If you want to do it yourself and carry on. I don't have anything to give it to you. Which was very humble of him to say that. Many people today look at what is my properties, my father's property, or what is his saving for the children is what children look for. Whereas those days we were very, very clear. God has been very kind. Within the 3 years, I was able to finish my CA and ICAA, and I did not join the first management trainee job at Lever Group, and went to Coimbatore with the same property developer who said, don't waste your time in corporate world, learn some business. So I went to Coimbatore from Chennai, eating in Meena mess and Mami messes in Ramnagar in Coimbatore, which was very different from me because I stayed at home and never had a hostel life either. So I started missing my family back home, but then that's how, even at the age of 23. So parents are parents. So I respect them, and they've given me a lot of love and affection, and that goes a long way in keeping yourself being positive. And the good part of it is maybe God made me to go to Coimbatore, and my wife was waiting, and my father-in-law was one of my customers for my properties business, and he bought flats from me. And then we fell in love. Asha is my wife. She's an MSc textile. And there we started in 1989. We got married. I was hardly 24. I'm not even 25. And then she's a pillar to me in my life after 31 years. And we are so faced various hurdles in different parts of the world in different situations. And if your spouse is able to support you, there is nothing like it. You don't need anybody else. I think your partner makes a big difference in life, and she contributed immensely in my shaping up. And she came from a very good background. She opened my eyes to a large extent because your thought process has been surrounded with what you are brought up and what you studied and all of that in a narrow sphere of spectrum. But she gave a different insight into it, and she took a risk with me, to be honest with you, which I wrote in my book. She took a risk with me to get married to me, so that was good. After my stint in Coimbatore, India was bankrupt in 1991. I was getting 5,000 rupees salary, which was not enough. So we decided to go abroad. Normal route for all of the chartered accountants is Dubai and Kuwait, and those are the places which were ideally suitable for this. Then Rwanda was the choice. Nobody knew what was Rwanda, and we landed in Kigali. We were the only couple allowed to work. In 1994, we came back just before the genocide. Moved to Indonesia, and it was a large company, and we were about $600 million, and by 98 we became $1.5 billion, and then we were supposed to be growing at looking for a growth of $5 billion in about 5 years. That was the dream and vision of the promoter that he built. He built that infrastructure. Honestly speaking, I was part of the top management. And then I was moved to South Africa at a leadership position for a big project. South Africa, where I was able to build a large textile, I built the largest infrastructure in the whole continent. And I was fortunate to meet President Mandela twice personally. He told me, build a rainbow board. When after the apartheid, he said, bring all the colors into your board, and which I proved to him. 2004, I moved to Hong Kong into a different business, which is all completely apparel. Of course, Indonesia and South Africa is textile, engineering, automotive. I was part of most of the large part of the conglomerate business. So I learned a lot of things, interacted with the top leaders in the world. Then I used to go around the world to see various factories and acquire, and a lot of things taught me very, very young. So that's a great experience I owe to my company and my promoter who shaped me. When I asked him, why are you shifting me to South Africa? He said, no, I know you have been groomed enough to take South Africa. So and I was 35, heading a listed company in South Africa. So when you want to keep a goal in your mind, it's at the back of your mind, it keeps happening. And your every action will move towards that. So I think I was very lucky to have such people, and the boss, I would say, second mentor would be my Indonesian boss. I owe it to him what I am today. In business, if I am partly successful, means it's because of his thought process and the vision and the grandiosity. Now, last 2 years, I'm now doing a private equity It's a turnaround fund. I run a private equity fund as a chief investment officer with a couple of my colleagues, and that's my profession has taken me to this level.
What was the seed of the novel End of Samba Dance? The genesis of the novel.
I have been 22 years in the corporate world at various levels, seen various crises, and when you meet various promoters, people with the dreams, with passion, typically Indian promoters or Asian promoter, I would say, the first generation promoters, they all start very humble. They have they want to achieve something in life. They get into that. They pledge their wife's jewelry, ask friends for their money, go to the bank, and they borrow money, pledging everything, collateral, sign all the dotted lines, and then start the business. And it goes on well up to a particular level. And when I was doing the research for my private equity fund, I wanted to know why companies succeeded and why companies failed. Of course, you have great books like Good to Great and so many other international books. But in the Indian context, people are always, there are of course certain curriculum based case studies, but nobody has done in a larger scale. I did about 5,000 listed companies, how they grew, what they did, why they defaulted, is it a business strategy problem, is it a business model problem, or is it leveraging, is it a greediness? Then I found out a stark thing which was very evident. Dreamy promoters who translated into vision into goal and action. And once it crossed a particular level, it became greedy. And when the greedy becomes grandiose, then the fault started happening, because you start becoming arrogant, you start becoming egoistic, you stop listening to people. So that was a characteristics of people who have achieved big and then failed. And there is also cusp of thing which happens, like external disequilibrium happens. When you think everything is going great, nobody would have known Indonesia or Asia will have a currency crisis problem. Now, it doesn't matter how big you are, it stops. Now, who knew COVID is going to affect even the best of the best business in the world? And today, entire world is struggling.
Right,
so,
right.
That is how I started shaping up. And I thought, why not we put it as a story form for people to understand?
Which is another question of mine. Why fiction? Why non-fiction? Why not non-fiction?
See, I am not some great Harvard educated guy or IIM professor who can write academic things and people will follow it through. And being a first time author, you have to make mistakes. And people will have to realize that this guy may not be good in his English language, but he has brought something onto the table which people are able to relate on a daily basis. I cannot become like a Shashi Tharoor or somebody who has got the erudite knowledge about all these things. What I wanted to communicate as a first time author is the experience of what you have gone through and what is in your heart, put it into writing. And that's what I wanted to shape up as a book.
Can you talk about the locations? The story starts in Coimbatore. Then it moves. Of course, the most of the book is laid out in Bombay. You are covering Indonesia and South Africa, and of course, you are going to London, Warsaw, Hamburg, across. So some of your characters also live there. Ram in South Africa. Then you have got Alistair in London. So are these locations where you have lived and gone through a personal experience?
See, Indonesia and South Africa are close to my heart. Of course, I have not brought Rwanda into the picture, neither Hong Kong. Maybe I'll reserve it for the next story. See, I always feel imaginative writing is normally for a great author. But when you are writing for the first time, it is better you are able to bring the reader something close to what they want to see. And when you have lived there and you have seen those places in reality, you bring it into their attention, they will be able to live it through as they read. That was the purpose. So Bombay I have been living for the last 12 years. So obviously Bombay is the financial capital, and Coimbatore is where I started my career. That's about it.
Right. Now, can we talk about the characters of the novel? I think you have the character in the flow. Now, SV, who's the business tycoon of Samba Group, is the protagonist, and then you got some antagonists also in the group, and there are some great characters across. And you have got a late bloomer in the story called Ajit Iyer, and Malati is a character who comes across. Then you have the brother of SV, Subbu, who is probably a docile but an important character, because in the end you conclude with him actually, Subbu, not SV, and that's an interesting small detail that I observed while reading the book. Somewhere and the connect of the characters also are very interesting, every character has a particular role, and then some of them exit also very nicely. And also the human elements, you're not focused only on the corporate relationships, but also the human relationships, like Meenu's love for SV and vice versa. Then I think Venkat actually entering with a bang, but then going quiet for some time, and then finally emerging as a very important character. I will leave it to you to comment on all this, because what the viewers would be interested is understanding that knotting and unweaving of the characters and the relationships.
One of the thing that I did in the book, in this very first page, I listed out all the characters, which is not normally seen in any fiction book. Any fiction will run around 5-10 characters around the book, and here, being a first book, I needed to bring overarching theme of governance. Governance is playing a very, very important role in our day-to-day lives, and this is something which I wanted to bring it along. The governance is also shaped by your bringing up. If you see his father, Venkatraman, who was a professor. Now, and then how he meets Meenu, and then how they bring their life. And Anant plays a very important role, his best friend, who gave him the platform for a business knowledge. Otherwise, after IIT and IIM, he was getting into corporate world, but yes, we get into Anant's business of the spinning mill, turning them around in Coimbatore. Most important factor is how do they reduce the cost of the investment? Very ingenious way in those days of buying a scrap machine and taking it to a business level and then competing in the market. So those are business fundamental, getting it right from day one. If you can save the depreciation and interest cost by 20%, your product is cheaper by that time. So I thought that impact should come, but then pure business characters is not enough, because every business there is a family behind or friends. Unless you bring their involvement in shaping their business growth, like Meenu has been a strong pillar for SV, and similarly Anant, when it comes to finance and accounts, Subbu takes care of it completely. Anant is more of a gentle character, emissary type of a role, who is playing that role for SV, like a conscience keeper. And then there are people like a CFO, Mr. Jain, and company secretary, and the conflicts. Then you have this media trying to expose. As you grow bigger, the challenge is always they will say bullshit can carry you to the top, but it cannot retain you there. So that is where a lot of people start looking at you. Who is this guy? Who is growing? And I took a story, because I come from a Tamil background and a Brahmin story. Why only people ask me, why don't you not talk about the big business people in the world? I mean, in Gujarat or in Maharashtra and Delhi who have done well. Why this character of Sambasivam? I said, that's my greed. That's my wish. One South Indian also can build a business that can be a role model, which is what was the background to it. Of course, in investment banking, when you one of the important factors is today 50% of the promoters are spending time in raising funds to achieve their vision and goals. Fundraising has become more important. whereas all the business schools in the world teach you 50% you have to be in the market, talking to the customers. But Indian promoters spend 50% in Nariman Point and Lower Parel. That's the fact of life. And you have to bring that aspect into this, and how SV overpowers them with this great vision. He is not able to take a no from anybody, and you could have observed that he doesn't like somebody saying criticism of his strategy, or even take the board. You have an eminent board, and this is happening in various parts of the top even companies in the country or around the world. His board of directors sometimes are not able to do what they are expected to do.
Independent directors, audit committee members.
Everything plays a role. But that's where I say you can have all these rules and regulations if the intention of the promoter, unfortunately in India, still promoter driven. We have to become professionally company driven. But that's coming to the second novel. We will come to that later. But this is how all the characters I brought it in to bring a reality. Of course, Venkat and Mr. Minister M.A., they play a very, very important role. It's a schematic role from day one when Venkat, courtship with Ritika, all of that.
And there's the proverbial Judas also in your story.
Oh, yes. and I learned a lot when I got into this last bits of the story, like Enforcement Directorate, the police investigation. In fact, one of my review was done by Mr. ex-DGP of Maharashtra, Mr. Shivanandan. He said, Sridhar, I didn't know that you were able to understand these things. These are not normally easily known. I said, sir, I visualized how you put somebody inside a room and then investigate, or how you arrest somebody while trying to flee from the country. And I'm honest to say, after my book, a few things in reality happened, Ashok. I don't know whether you have observed. Whatever I wrote in the book, few of them came into real picture. So then I realized, oh my God, maybe I have to be careful with the next novel.
No, you are becoming a prophet. Actually, you are able to prophesize many.
Ashok, all of us have stories. Every company, whether small or big, everybody struggles through, and it's a story. Everybody needs to share it for betterment of the younger generation, the new startups. You see, so many startups are happening. Everybody comes with a great theme, great PowerPoint presentation, and you see what happens. So I think that is what my exploration is all about.
Yeah. Can you talk about your creative writing style? I know you're a first author and you come from Tamil medium, and you actually started behind the starting line, as they would say. But your style is very flourishing. The connects and the interweaving is very good. How did you write this novel? Talk about your writing style. How you felt comfortable with your own writing style, and talk about your editing experience.
See, in 2017, I started jotting down this theme, and then I thought, let me put it in a chapter-wise sequence of four lines, and then the entire 18, I never touched the novel at all. I didn't write anything. Then I travel from Belapur to Lower Parel, which takes about 1.5 hours in the morning and the evening. And one day I am like, sometimes like I behave like a militant photographer, militant poet. I am like a militant writer. Like, I thought I have to try this. I used to talk so much about all these experiences. So at the back of your mind, all these things are registered in your mind. All what you have to do is put it into writing, whether it is Kacha English or whatever it is, start putting it down to writing. And I started writing one chapter a day. I started on February 25th. By 15th of April, I was done with the 50 chapters. And whether I travel in a train or in a flight, I will spend that time and ensure one chapter a day. I was able to do that, and which gave me a lot of satisfaction, because when I get up in the morning, I have to write this. And then your mind starts going towards visualizing that scenario, where you are going to go, what event is going to happen, what is happening in the board meeting today, what is happening in the media when the press is releasing my reports. So these are exciting things. When I read an Economic Times in the morning in the car, and immediately I put it down and I start writing. So that's how in 50 days I was able to do that. Of course, getting into publishing is a big challenge for any first-time author. I was very clear at my age, I did not have that patience or energy to go behind all the big publishing house. Of course, they all need something solid to put it into. I understand their business model, which is not, I may not be the cup of tea as of now. So I decided to self-publish it. I took help of a publisher who helped me in shaping this and getting the initial things done. So editing was some I may not be so satisfied with it, because one, I had my own inherent weakness, but I thought the system will help me, but that did not happen as much I wanted. But anyway, it is out. I know few mistakes have happened. When readers pointed out, I realized it. I told at least the correction to happen in the future editions or the prints.
And tell me about how you reached out to your audience in the initial days. I mean, I'm sure that there are quite a few successes and interesting experiences there in terms of reaching out. People call it promotion, but I wouldn't do so, because I think today there are setups where people call it as marketing, people call it as promotion, but I think some of our experience is mere reach out.
Honestly, I did not do any promotion for 6 months. When I say promotion, means no event as such, to say book launch or any of that happened from 28th June until the end of November, beginning of December. What I did was fiction. I shared my manuscript with 5 eminent people. One is a corporate lawyer, one is a police chief, one is an investment banker, one is an industrialist who turned around companies. So these 5 people, one is a media editor, one of the financial media editor, a very well-known editor. They read the book and they gave the review, and I told the press that please include this review in the book itself. And that was my starting point. And over a period of last 30 years plus, I have built a relationship across the world. And in India, as I said, more than 1,000 companies I have met. I have been able to keep up that relationship through my LinkedIn forums, through my Facebook. And I felt this is not going to be an easy read for normal fiction readers, because it's a business related. First thing they will say, oh, you're a finance guy. They will start branding you that you're a finance guy, you have to only target the finance audience. So if you see my book, I would have never used any high funda thesis in my book. No finance terminology other than few things of profit and loss and business. I would have never used anything beyond that, because I wanted the reach to become the youngsters in a college should be able to read it and appreciate it. So I did one-to-one emailing, LinkedIn messages with my book and with my blurb, and I reached out to more than 5,000 people. And I think in a matter of about 6-7 months, I sold about 600-700 books, hard copies, and then many downloaded from Kindle and all that. I had readers from US to UK to Middle East and South Africa. So a lot of people were able to read it through. That's my way I approached it. In the month of November or December, I did. People said, now you have to, do one particular, launch or something. And Mr. G.N. Bajpai, ex-SEBI chairman, LIC chairman, he was kind enough to release my book, and I had a panel discussion. I didn't release the book as such, just the release of the book. It was a panel discussion about the governance. It's about the board of directors' responsibilities, how these things happened, the greed. So never talked about the book. None of these 5-7 eminent personalities talked about my book. My book was only 10 minutes of the entire show in the 1.5 hours. But mostly they've covered a lot of things that happens, which is part of my book. That's how I approached the entire release.
That's great to hear. I think some of our viewers might be curious to know how each author approaches their post-publishing and connecting with their audience. So this is a phase that not many people really talk about for multiple reasons, but it's an important point to discuss also from an author perspective and a reader perspective. I think the reach out is I think every author is duty bound to reach out to his audience all the time, like a celebrity. Even though celebrity is a big word to use, because the idea is not about writing the book also, but it is also about to reach out to your audience who you intend to communicate this message or share this story with.
True. Whenever I learnt a very important lesson from HDFC chairman, Mr. Aditya Puri, once I met him on a business. First question he asked me is, do you have an account with HDFC? I was surprised, I was shocked. He said, if you don't have an account, first to open it, then we'll have a discussion. And fortunately, I had an HDFC bank account, and I told him, yes, I do have, this is my account number. And then, so that taught me, a man at that level is able to get a customer who comes into his room. That speaks a volume about the quality that man has imbibed into that organization. Now, if he can do for an account holder to get an account, an author who has put all his 30 years of experience into a book, if I can't ask anybody who is coming into my office, either you take my book free of cost or you please buy it online, nothing wrong in asking it. I'm shameless. But at the end of the day, it's a mutual. If you are a reader, you are going to like it. People keep asking, Sridhar, what are the good books to suggest?
The author has to be confident about his book. If you may succeed, you may not succeed. But as I think one of my partner Mahesh says, what is the harm in asking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a very nice thing. I learned it in Hong Kong experience. My boss in Hong Kong, he said, Sridhar, nothing wrong in asking. You can be stupid. Ultimately, they are going to say no. That's it, right? You are anyway prepared for the answer. If it is yes, it is a bonus for you.
Absolutely.
So, I think the way I sold my apartment, I am trying to sell very niche book to people. This is not a genre for everybody, but people who have read it, non-finance people have also appreciated, and I'm happy. See, it may not be selling in 3,000 and 5,000 copies. I am not that greedy to ask all of that. If it happens, it happens. Otherwise, the very satisfaction of you putting into a form of a book, and people like you today interviewing me is something that I am happy about it and proud, and thank you for that opportunity, Ashok.
And interestingly, comes to the very interesting question. What is in store for all your readers, followers, and would-be readers beyond the end of Samba Dance?
My second book, thought process, is already on. I have jotted down the broad theme of the story. It will have two stories coming together. I have done some turnarounds of few companies in my life, and this is today ask of the day, whatever is happening. See, what goes up has to come down, and it has an opportunity to go back. And whether it is a bankruptcy law, intent of all these regulation is to regenerate the corporate world and the business. It's like you have a love failure, you come out of it and bounce back, and then it's like that. So business has to happen like that, and so turnaround is one story that I will bring it in. Second is shareholder activism. We have all heard in our syllabus in various courses, but we have never seen in India much about this shareholder activism. Even honestly, if I have some 10 stocks, I don't even do voting online. It is we assume somebody else will do, and somebody else will take a proper judgment, the directors, the board of directors, or the institutional holders and all that. But when I realize when there is a failure, you realize that this is something we should talk about it. Maybe I'll bring a character. And one more thing I want to do in this thing, maybe I will have a lady character like Samba Sivam in terms of the approach, because they are going to play a very, very important role. I feel the woman director, that new terminology, the new emphasis being given, they have a huge role to play, and they can do a better
diversity
job.
In management and boards.
Absolutely, and then that's something which I plan to do it before end of this year, if God willing. But last 100 days, I have had a different experience in lockdown.
Which is what I want to touch upon. So beyond writing books, which is now what you are as an author, you also have some other passion. So can you share what are your passions to our readers
Oh, oh
and
yes.
viewers?
See, my mother thought I'll become a guitarist. I don't know where she got this idea. She suddenly put me when I was around 9 or 10 into a guitar class. 10 rupees a month was big thing for her. But she thought I'll become a guitarist. I learnt about 4 or 5 years. Played in some churches, some marriage halls, and then that those days Doordarshan was coming in, and I was put in some children association to do some dramas as a child artist and all that. So that was something happened. But once I started working from the age of 17, I stopped all of that. But then the linkage to my Tamil was always there. When I was in Indonesia, we had a Tamil association. In Hong Kong, we had a Tamil association. So I was able to compare few stage programs. Then I used to write comedy skits. Sitting in the bus in Hong Kong, I used to write Tamil comedy skits, direct it, act it, and then stage it. So those are the things which I did outside India. After coming to India, honestly, I have not had that opportunity. But I did do something in the last 100 days. I have never did anything art in my life or anything. I thought, why not I start something? And in about 100 days, I have done about 100 artworks, from pencil sketches to crayons to canvas to watercolors. I explored everything, different types of art. Some of them people say good, some of them are not so good, but I was having the courage to share it with about 500 people on a daily basis.
That's
so that's
good.
something that kept me busy.
This is another important message for all authors also, because I think your what you call the creative reach out that you are doing eventually builds up towards your second book also, because not many people know that you can't go silent between book one and book two. And however you are reaching out, you need a constant engagement with your readership, because you are evangelizing certain principles, unlike other authors, like corporate governance, like shareholders evangelism, in terms of whistleblowing, in terms of quality of audit or independent directorship. So some of the messages that you are carrying still are, I mean, it's increasingly relevant in even the Indian context and worldwide as well.
Yes, true. I think two things. People used to always say after retirement, they will say, let me do after retirement. And by the time 56, 58, one, they have lost their energy and they will sit in an easy chair and say, oh my God, what did I do in my life? Now I don't have the energy to do what I want to do in life. And your wife is always complaining, what are you doing? Sitting a whole day and reading a newspaper and watching TV. So you need to develop certain things to keep you busy. And my father-in-law, when he passed away, was 83. And before passing away, 2 months before, he presented a World Technical Textile Conference at the age of 83. And you can imagine a man at that age kept himself alert is all because of passion to do certain things. Now, unless we develop some passion, we are going to have it difficult as we age, because whether we like it or not, we are going to live longer than our forefathers. Because of medical facilities, because of various things. Now, you can't be sitting idle and popping pills and doing nothing, and you'll be mentally wrecked, but physically living. So we need to create certain things well before, and it doesn't take a lot of time to get this commitment and dedication to do it. I think I would suggest we all should do that.
Okay, thank you so much, Sridhar, for spending your time with us. Especially on your birthday, and it's been wonderful talking to you about your book End of Samba Dance, and also the forthcoming book, and also beyond the books. And there are quite a few takeaways for all of us from this conversation. We hope to meet you soon with your second book. And look forward then.
Thank you, Ashok, for having me, and it was a nice conversation, interesting. And thank you all the viewers to read my book and request to read my book.